Yes, my friends, here we are on another episode of the Tyler Hill podcast. I am with today, as I mentioned in the intro, one of the kindest dudes on planet Earth. Before he gets to share anything, I want to tell a quick story. This will be about him, but I need to tell this story. I started posting like maybe a year or two ago about the process of writing my first book, which is still yet to be published. That'll happen someday. But Tanner here, an accomplished author, published books, gajillions of followers across the world, a man of great influence, not only sent me an encouraging note on Instagram, the dude wrote me a letter. He sent me his books. He said, Tyler, writing matters. Keep going. He went out of his way to just encourage just a little schmuck like me from Colorado Springs. Man, just that act of radical kindness is something I'll never forget. And I still, in my other office, have that letter right next to me while I'm writing my book. That's the kind of person Tanner is, and he is here with us on the podcast to share his love. I'm so excited, Tanner. How are you?
Well, after those kind words, I I'm good. I'm great, man.
Good.
I it was so fun to see you making those posts. I think a lot of times when people are like they have a dream or this goal they want to accomplish, they try to do it in secret. And the thing that I admire about you is like you just said from the very beginning, I'm going to take you along this process, this journey, and show you what it's like. And that I thought that was really not just awesome, but like vulnerable and sincere. And those are my kind of people. You're my kind of people.
Yeah. Thanks, Tanner. That means a lot. Yeah, it's funny. I just actually put out probably besides my interviews, my most listened to podcast episode was me also being really vulnerable about how discouraging the process has been and
Hmm.
just my 40, I'm up to 41 rejection letters so far, and it's just a grind, but we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
I was crying reading my wife some of my very last passages in the book last night. It brought me to tears, so can't wait for you to read it. But this isn't about me, this is about you. Tanner, before we get into work, the writing, the new book, because we are more than what we make. We are more than what we do for a vocation. Let's say you have a couple $100.
Yep.
You have a day or two to yourself. Grandma's watching the kids. You have all the time in the world. What is Tanner doing with his free time? What makes him come alive? We're not talking about work. We're talking about you. What makes you come alive? You got the time.
Is
What you
it
doing?
just me, or do I get to, can I bring people with me?
It's up to you. You're the boss.
All right, let's just say for what it is, it's me and my wife. Okay.
Yep.
For some reason, we are down in Orlando, where I grew up, and we're gonna go. My mom's watching our son Judah and our dog Pancake. I am gonna wake up like I always do, right in the morning, where it's dark and quiet and still, and start the day writing and in prayer. And then we begin and we go get coffee and we go for a big walk. And then we go have lunch somewhere, nothing too heavy, so that I still feel good for the rest of the afternoon.
Love it.
And then I get at some point during the day, I spend a little too much money on a piece of cake and coffee. And then later on that night, I spend a little bit more on a nice old fashioned, and then we go watch an Orlando Magic basketball game in person.
I love it.
That's all that I really want in a day, man. And oh, and I'm not looking at my phone at all.
Yes.
Like
So
I just don't look at it. That's the whole day.
so good, bro. That's so good. Speaking of, we have to go here. How do you feel about the new Orlando Magic uniforms that just came out? You were the first one
Yeah,
I thought about for what it's
thank
worth.
you.
I saw
Thank you.
those, thought of you. Let's hear
Yeah,
it.
you know what? It's a big deal to release a new uniform, a new logo. Rebranding has to be difficult, especially when you are in a billion-dollar industry. The original Orlando Magic uniforms are perfect. Not a lot of things are perfect. They are perfect. They got it right the first time, and then they've had a couple of logos that I wasn't a fan of. This one feels okay. Like I like it. Like but I'm not an art critic.
Yeah.
when I look at something, I want to try to find what I like about it, how it makes me feel. There are some people who are just like really good at being like, this is trash. I hate it. I'm not that kind of person. At least I have to
Kind.
fight to not be that kind of person. So I'm excited about it. I've already
Yeah.
bought a couple of pieces of merch because that's just the kind of person I am.
Yep.
But I love I love the new direction that the franchise is going, and so it gets me excited.
Love it. Where is home for you, Tanner?
Yeah, we live in Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in Orlando though, so and then I lived all over. I lived in Wisconsin and St. Louis and Texas and a couple of other places along the way. But we landed in Nashville in 2019, and that's kind of been home for us for now.
It's awesome. Um, you're a writer. You create. It's your job. If I recall
Yeah.
right, and I might have this wrong, I don't have a research team. Um, there was a point when you took a big risk, when you decided you were going to be a writer. If I
Hmm.
remember you telling me right, there was a kind of a moment or a season where you sort of you took a big leap to chase the dream, chase the desire. I'd be curious if you could let us into that story a little bit. Like one of the things we love to talk about here is just life transformation,
Hmm.
chasing our dreams, becoming who God designed us to be. Where did that spark to become a writer come from, and what did the jump look like for you going from like what you were doing to now getting to have a vocation very much in alignment with your passions and
Hmm.
who you really are.
Yeah. Well, let's make it a long story, right?
Yep.
So I started writing back in middle school and high school. I was really influenced. I really wanted to be in a punk rock band. Like I loved Blink-182, Jimmy Eat World, Newfound Glory, Yellow Card. Like those bands brought me, they gave me life. Like the words that they sang made me feel seen and made me feel something. And I
Yes.
loved that. And so I started writing because I thought I was going to be like in a punk band or something like that. But turns out you have to have musical talent to be in a band, and I
Yes.
don't have any of that. But I loved the writing process. I loved writing the lyrics, which was essentially just poetry. And I kept writing throughout high school and then kind of during college as well. After I graduated from college, I went to a small Christian school and then started doing church work. And I was working for a Christian organization right out of college, and I was still writing like all the time. It was the thing that I really wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. This was back in 2013. So this was like, before there were a lot of like solo entrepreneurs doing the whole artist thing
Yep.
and like making a living doing that. There were a couple of people that did that and I watched them. Um, and Thanks be to God, I got fired from my first job out of college. And at the time, it was the worst thing that I thought the worst thing that was ever going to happen to me. And turns out it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yes.
But during those months, that season of what's next, why did this happen to me? All this, I just kept writing. Writing was has always been the thing that I've wanted to do, and it's always the thing I find myself doing and wanting to get better at. And then so from 2013 to 2019, I worked full-time jobs at churches and other organizations, camps, and I would write in the mornings and the evenings, chasing the dream on the side, slowly building up a little bit of money so that one day I could take the leap
Mm.
to be a full-time writer. So in 2019, I released my first book of poetry, and I thought, okay, now's a good time for me to start touring. And so at the end of 2019, I began touring around the country, speaking at churches and schools and coffee shops, really just anywhere that people would have me to share poetry. Which, if you're wondering, it's hard to get people into a room to listen to a no-name poet.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, but I did that,
That's crazy.
and then, COVID happened, and
Yep.
that took another step back. So I was just at home writing and working, and then started self-published a couple of books, and that really kind of brings us to now. And now that the world is back open, I'm traveling more. I travel now with like singer-songwriters and host evenings of music and poetry, and um, do some coaching and some consulting, and just like I don't know, like I love the work, I love the craft, and I love sharing hope through words and encouraging people in the work that they believe God has created them to do.
Yes. I mean, it sounds like in many ways, whether or not it became a job or not,
Yeah.
you'd be writing. regardless.
Yeah. And now that writing is my job, it seems like some days I write less than I did before it was my actual job. Because
Yeah.
you're doing all these other things that you're like just to keep the thing going. What's like, answering emails, booking shows, sending out, orders, all these small things along the way that kind of get I don't want to say get in the way of the thing that you feel like you were created to do or the
Yep.
thing that you really want to do, which is writing. But to do the thing you love to do, sometimes you have to do the small things
Yep.
um, that feel like they get in the way.
In my spiritual direction practice, we work a lot on discernment and people wanting
Hmm.
to figure out who God made them to be and what decisions do they make. And a lot of times I hear creative folks often rebel against the idea of their art becoming their job. Should it be? Because when it becomes my job, then it loses all of its freedom and it becomes bound to the
Hmm.
work and to the money. Um, what would you say to somebody who's scared to maybe charge for their work, to maybe pursue their art as a living? What would your insight into kind of those types of questions be?
That's a good question. I've been in those conversations before too, where someone is like, like, guys, I don't want to like charge for it. I don't want to lose the magic. I don't want to, take away from the creativity. And my answer is like, well, maybe. It it might. It also kind of depends on how do you take those steps forward, or what other things do you have in your life that are going to take your time, or that you need to take responsibility for. I think my biggest thing kind of going into this was like, will I still, will it lose its magic?
Hmm.
Will I lose my love for it? Will the fun be gone? And in some ways, yes, but I feel like I've grown as an artist, as a creator, because I'm also having to pay my bills.
Hmm.
I'm also having to find ways to make schedules work. I have to wake up early, earlier than I ever wanted to wake up, so that I can continue to chase the dream.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times it's like people will say, well, I feel like, God has called me to be a writer, or I was created to do this thing. And I believe that's probably true. But maybe the way that we frame it in our heads isn't necessarily the same way or the same thing that God has invited us to do that.
Yep.
I know that when I first started as a writer, I thought, oh, I'm gonna be a big name writer.
Hmm.
Everyone's gonna know me. I'm gonna put a couple of things on the internet. It's gonna take off, and I'm gonna have it made. That has never happened, and I'm
Yep.
very thankful that it hasn't happened. Uh, and I think I just had to do some reframing in my head to take this really big dream,
Hmm.
this really big calling, and be like, well, maybe it's more like this small, beautiful thing rather than this grand thing that you thought it was going to be in your own head. Did
Wow.
that make any sense?
That did. Yeah. No, that's,
Because
yeah. That's,
oftentimes people are like, they'll tell me, they're like, yeah, I'm supposed to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, you might, yeah, writing is a good thing.
yeah.
It is healthy. It is therapeutic. There's opportunities for it to bring hope to others and to remind them to keep going and to keep living. Is it going to pay your bills? I don't know.
Hmm.
Is it going to get you the car that you want? I don't know. Is your book going to be in a bookstore? I don't know.
Yeah.
You can do it,
Yeah.
but it's probably not going to go the way that you think it's going to go.
Yeah. Yes. That's so good. It kind of makes me think, Tanner, when people, I used to own a coffee company and, I had multiple coffee shops and people would ask
Hmm.
me questions that I ask authors now all the time,
Yeah.
Tyler, I want to open a coffee shop. And I would start asking them questions, and they would tell me things about like, oh, this is what the interior design is going to be, or this is the equipment of the coffee shop. This is the coffee we're going to use. And they talked nothing about business. They talked nothing about
Yep.
hiring or HR. And, a lot of times it sounded like, or this is the bands we're going to have in the corner.
Hmm.
It sounds like you want to gather community. It doesn't sound like you want to own a coffee company, or it sounds like you want to be an interior designer, not a
Yeah.
coffee shop owner.
Yep.
I think you want a coffee club. And it's like, there is this burning, but the manifestation of it often, I think, yeah, it can be so linear when really maybe God gives us all of these burnings that have myriads of manifestations that aren't just the top 1% of the famous
Hmm.
people on the
Yep.
planet. Yeah,
Yep.
that's so good.
Yeah, you might be a writer that just keeps a journal. You're
Yeah.
still a writer,
Hmm.
or it might just be, and when I say might just be, that feels like it sounds limiting and it's not supposed to be limiting, but it might just be like maybe you're just writing on Substack or posting things on Instagram or you're self-publishing a book.
Yes.
None of those things are bad. None of those things are wrong. In fact, it's quite beautiful to continue to pursue a dream that doesn't look like the way you thought it was going to look,
Yeah.
to continue to endure and to change with the changes and just to
Yeah.
create because that's what you want to do.
Yes. What for you, Tanner, was the moment that you jumped? Like you mentioned going on tour. How did you
Yeah.
know? I mean, obviously it was a risk. You didn't know if it was going to work, but like, could you walk us through kind of that discernment, that sort of like when did the straw break? When did the dam open there?
Yeah, so I was working at a church in Austin. It was a small church plant. And I was working with a friend who was the pastor. His name's Barrett, and he is still one of my best friends. He sat me down one day, and it was just the two of us working at the church. And he sat me down and he was like, you can do this writing thing. So you can do this. Like there's a way for you to make this as a living.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I want to help you. I want to kind of help show you some things that I see from where I'm sitting, not from where you're sitting. And for me, that was super formative because it was somebody seeing the thing that I really wanted to do, inviting himself into it where he was always had been welcome and offering help, not just like, hey, you can do it.
Hmm.
And that be that. And that would have been enough. But then he was like, you could try this, you could do this, you could do this. And I can make a couple of phone calls so you can go do this, do this. Like he wanted to help me. And I think a lot of times we need a guide to enter into our story and to grab us by the hand and say, let's go here. Sometimes you have to ask for that. And sometimes it just happens. So Barrett told me like, "Hey man, you can go do this," and he kind of helped show me a way forward, and then he encouraged me to go do that. So we moved from Austin, Texas, back to Nashville, and I started setting up tours and calling up churches and youth groups and conferences and saying, "Hey, I just released this book of poetry. Can I come share?" And it was very like I spent money to go do it. I was not asking anybody to pay me at this point
Yeah.
because I wanted to see if it worked. Was it meaningful? Were people taking something away from it? Um, was I able to handle time on the road and away from home? Uh, when you take that leap of faith and that jump,
Hmm.
it is also uncertain. It is also like there's so much unknown that you're wading through. And I just found myself the whole time just walking with open hands saying, okay, is this the next right thing?
Yeah.
Is this good? Is this healthy? Is this helpful?
Yep.
Because I was confident that this is the thing that I was supposed to do, or at least I wanted to do it. And I think there has to be part of that. Like you have to want to do this thing too. You don't want to have to like go into it and be like, I hate doing this stuff. Like you have to want to.
Yes.
And then as you kind of work through it, you also have to be able to like walk away if it's not the right thing, or if it doesn't work for the people that you love, if it's not healthy for you as an individual, then it's time to make some shifts and to make some changes. And I did along the way.
Yeah.
Um, but it was that initial jump that got me going, and I loved it. It was the best. And I bombed a couple of nights, but you have to
Yes.
fail if you ever want to succeed. And I one time did a show for three people at a library.
Yep.
It was the best and worst thing. And then the next night it was like, 200 people in a packed out church for some reason, and you just can't explain that kind of stuff. And then so you just kind of
Yep.
roll with it.
Yep.
Um, and you have to learn how uh, my mom would always say, and she still says this, expect nothing and everything is a gift.
Yeah.
And I always found that to be super just really helpful, especially in the moments when things weren't the way you wanted them to be.
Yeah. It's so good. I can when I used to tour with poetry, I also had once played a show for just my parents. at a coffee shop in a mountain town, and I still did the show. Um,
Yep.
I can remember. I will not ever forget that moment. Um, so you took that jump, and now we are here with a new published book.
Yeah.
All the things I say to God.
Hey, you got it. Yeah.
We got it. We read it last night. We read it this morning. Um, so now we're cruising. We're writing books. This is the new one.
hmm
It's about prayer, which I love. Um, tell us about it, man. Tell me about the book.
Yeah, so the book is titled All the Things I Say to God, and it came out of nowhere. Like this is my first children's book. Uh when I first started writing, and this is kind of where the shift and the change comes in. When I first started writing, I remember I was writing at a coffee shop in St. Louis, a shop called Caldy's Coffee. Um and I would go there every Saturday to write. And when I would sit down to write, I would write like personal essays, reflections, because I wanted to be a writer like early Donald Miller stuff and Anne Lamott. Like I loved their writings, and I was like, this is the kind of writer I want to be. And then over time, I started writing more poetry. I got back into that, and then I was like, well, maybe I'm going to keep writing poetry. And then I just kept doing that. So I released 4 books of poetry. They're out in the world.
Yep.
And then back in 2020, 2021, my wife and I, we were trying to start a family, and we were diagnosed with unexplained infertility, and that led us into this new season of grief and uncertainty and wondering, okay, what was next? Um, and during that time, like, I kept writing because I mean, I don't know about you, but like I just write
Yes.
when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm full of joy, when I'm full of hope, when there is grief. Like, and that's what I would bring to the table. Is I would write about the grief, I would write about the frustrations, I'd even write about the surprised joy that would come through in the season of darkness. Um, and one morning I woke up and I found myself just writing a children's book of all things.
Hmm.
And I was writing what I needed to hear.
Wow.
And that's really, I mean, the best way to describe my writing is, I write the things that I need to hear. And I needed to be reminded that I could pray anytime, anywhere, and about anything. And for some reason, it just kind of came out as a children's book.
Yeah.
Because I also wanted to share it with all of our friends who were having kids, their kids who were calling me Mr. Tanner and Uncle Tanner. And so that's the book that came out. I never thought it was happening. I pitched it to a literary agent, and he said, "Okay, this is good."
Hmm.
Actually, that's not what he said at first. The first thing I said to him was, "I got a memoir," and he said, "No." And then I said, "I got another book of poetry," and he goes, "What else do you got?"
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, I got a children's book," and honestly, it's been so fun to have this book out. But it kind of goes back to the beginning, like when I first started chasing this dream, I thought it was going to look like this and like this and like this, and never once did I think that I would write a children's book
Yep.
you know, and this might be, who knows what the rest of the days look like for me, but this might be the thing that I am remembered for as a writer. And I'd be totally honored by that. Because I think the book, I mean, you had a chance to read it. The book basically what it does is it wants to communicate this message that you don't have to have it all together to sit and to pray and to talk to God.
Hmm.
You can say anything, anytime, anywhere. You can
Yep.
take your things, your questions, you can take your praise, you can take your sadness, you can take your silence to God, and it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, yeah.
And so this was birthed, like you said, out of grief and out of this
hmm
season of infertility.
hmm
Um, would you be willing to let us a little bit more into what that was like for you just as a human, not as an author? Again, we're not just what we make. It is a big part of us,
hmm
but what did Tanner need to say to God? What was going on inside of Tanner while
hmm
the uncertainty and the grief was there? Like what did you want to say? What did you learn to say? What did you need to say to God in those darker moments?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, it was a lot of why.
Hmm.
It was a lot of why us, how. Like it just didn't, and nothing, it didn't add up based off of test results and lab results and all the things. It just didn't make any sense. The doctors were like, "This is why it's called unexplained infertility because we can't explain it," and yet they would still charge you for not giving you a real answer. Well, that's a different part.
Yeah.
The things that I would bring to God oftentimes were just silence,
Yeah.
um, but trust,
Hmm.
trusting that He was not, that we had not been forgotten. When you go through grief, a lot of times, like you have all this love and you really don't know where to go with it. But then you also have all these questions and these lies that you feel like you're battling against. You feel like you're becoming a brand new person, and a lot of times it's not the person that you want to become. So you're fighting off resentment and bitterness, and you're trying to hold on to the good and to the beauty, while
Hmm.
at the same time, the people around you are receiving answers to prayers that you're praying.
Hmm.
Um, and this is like, our grief being unexplained infertility, but then you think about others who lose a parent, lose a child, lose someone they love, while at the same time somebody is entering into something beautiful, and you're like, why can't that be part of my story? It's just a lot of wrestling that came with it. So during that season, I spent a lot of time just asking God how and why, and then eventually began to pray, okay, God, what are you doing? What is next? One of my favorite prayers is, God, what are you up to?
Hmm.
And how can I be part of it?
Hmm.
And I had to remind myself that something more was happening than I could see.
Yeah.
Like you can't see the roots stretched deep underneath the earth, but you know the tree is getting stronger.
Yeah.
And I knew something was happening. And so, we just kept trying to take those next right, faithful steps forward. And for us, we were led to adoption. And now our son is 19 months old.
Hmm.
And I can look back while still holding the grief, holding the things that we had gone through, and now knowing a joy that I never would have known before.
Yes.
And then you can kind of look back and you say, okay, maybe this is what you were up to, God,
Yep.
along the way.
Yep.
Um, the thing that I just kept learning during that season is just, life is not going to go the way that you want it to go.
Hmm.
And it sounds so, I don't know, elementary to say something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not super deep. Like I say it all the time. People are like, yeah, dude, of course. But that's, what I feel like, life just is not going to go the way you want it to go. It's hard and heavy and unexpected, but sometimes we just need to say it how it is.
Yes.
Sometimes just by saying that, like saying like it's not going the way that I want it to go, and this hurts.
Yes.
So now what?
Hmm. Yeah. Could you give just like, let's think about maybe somebody listening to this that is going through infertility, seasons of grief. Like, I heard you say you get to this moment where, okay, we are trusting in God, we're still grieving, we're still like there's roots that are deepening somewhere.
Hmm.
Could you give maybe, yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't need to be a timeline, but like it's not like it was like that the whole time. That had to have been a process you got to,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, could you just speak into maybe just to again make this so real for all of us who have grieved, or those who are learning to grieve? I think we can
Yeah.
learn how to grieve. What was prayer like before you got to that trusting moment? Because there had to have
Mm.
been times, and maybe not. I'm making an assumption here, where you weren't sure of the roots, like you were really in it, where the pain on the surface was too great to see what was going on beneath. How did you navigate that? What would you speak to someone who might say, like, dude, I can't get to that trusting thing yet. I'm angry as hell right now.
Yeah.
What does that prayer look like before we get to the trust?
I would my my reaction to that is to say, well, go pray that.
Yes.
Well, go talk to him about that. And that kind of goes back to, writing this book is like you can say anything.
Yes.
Your it is not off limits.
Mhm.
God's not putting up fences. He's not walking away. He's not saying you can't say that. It is, well,
Yep.
come be angry with me. Come be frustrated with me.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
it, and for me, and for what I believe, I always come back to, well, one day everything is going to be okay.
Yep.
I am not skipping to that point by saying that. I also know that when you are going through it, you should be in it. You don't have to try to jump out of it. Like go through the thing that you're going through. You don't just go through it. Be angry, be frustrated, be sad, ask your questions. Sit at home, be sad. Like you can be all
Yes.
those things because you're going to carry this grief with you.
Yes.
Even in this new season that we are in, like, and I talk about it, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I get to tell our story often, and I'm so glad that I do because of the conversations that come out of it. But I am constantly remembering what it was like to go. You carry the grief, and the grief changes how you walk, right?
Hmm.
Like we often talk about how grief gives you a limp, and it's true. Like I live and navigate this life totally different because of what we went through. The conversations that I have, the way that I approach conversations, the way that I know God, the
Yep.
way that I know the faithfulness of God, the way that I know seasons of doubt. Now, when somebody says, "Hey, I'm going through this," or "This is the thing that I'm wrestling with," it all makes sense to me. I may not fully understand it, but I'm not like, "Well, that's weird." Like,
Yeah.
no, that you're going through it.
Yes.
When you're going through it, man, there's no playbook.
Mm.
There's 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 no like right way to do it. Just like there's no right way to pray.
Yes.
But you can.
Hmm.
But you can go through it, but you can pray.
Yes.
Um the grief is no like one size fits all. There's no like we all handle and walk through it differently. And the things that we have in common are going to hit us differently.
Hmm.
The grief or the pain that we have in common, it's we're gonna walk through it and carry it and move forward with it in a different way.
Yep.
And yet I think the thing that I've learned through all of it is to just continue.
Hmm. Yes.
And sometimes continuing looks like moving very, very slow. Sometimes continuing looks like being very still. Sometimes it looks like shouting.
Yeah. Mm. I promise we'll get to the book a little bit more.
Oh, I'm
Um,
not worried about
but
that. You already mentioned it. We're good.
um, how does someone walk alongside another experiencing infertility? So you were going through this experience, which you hear it all the time after somebody's gone through a season of infertility, and then they say, "Why is
Hmm.
nobody talking about this?" Um, you know, so let's talk about it. You've gone through it, you've
Hmm.
experienced it. It's still part of your story. The people that walked alongside you and loved you and held you well in that season, what did they do? And how would you advise someone walking with somebody else going through what you did?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is even when uh, the couple walking through infertility becomes parents, whether that's through some sort of miracle or adoption or foster, um, their story is still there,
Yes.
and the grief is still there. It is. Um, so I would say like that is now part of your friend's story,
Hmm.
and they think about it a lot. It
Wow.
is not just a thing that they kind of because they're constantly being reminded of it by the world and by others. Um, Now, for us, getting to be Judah's parents has changed the way that we live and see the world and walk and all that kind of stuff. Um, but for those who are walking with people through infertility, is I would say you have to you have to be okay with asking the hard questions and with bringing the elephant into the room.
Hmm.
if you're not at, and this, I can only really speak for me because I know other people might say differently. And so if you got friends who are walking through infertility, like ask them, we want to support you. How can we best do that? Does that mean, do you want me to ask you how you're like, how are things going every week? Like, because I can do that.
Yep.
The- I would have friends who would just check in on me and just say, what's going on? Do you want to talk about it? I'm happy to talk about it with you. Um,
Mhm.
One thing that a friend said to me, because a lot of times people don't know how to respond to others' grief because they don't want to deal with the silence or the awkwardness or the tears or the realness.
Yes.
Um, I had a friend once, he just told me, man, I just hate this for you.
Yeah.
And that was the most meaningful thing anyone has ever said to me.
Mm.
Because a lot of times other people will be like, well, God's timing is perfect. That's not helpful.
Mm.
It might be true. It's not helpful. Just because it's true doesn't mean it's helpful. Somebody sitting next to me saying, dude, I hate this for you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
And just to be seen. And I think that's what it is for a lot of us is we really just want to be seen. You don't have to fix it. I
Yeah.
know you can't fix it, but I know you can be with me in it.
Yeah.
And I know that you can come over to the house and hang out with me and that when you leave, you're not holding it anymore, but you were helping me hold it for a little while, and that means a lot.
Mm. Mm.
To have people to enter into your grief, not to fix it, but just to be present in it, that is a gift.
Yes.
And so I think, for those who know people who are wrestling with this kind of grief, walking through this kind of journey, to show up and to show up again and again, it means more than you think. You're not going to feel like you did anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part. You're not going to do anything. You
Yeah.
might just do nothing, and nothing is exactly what we need.
Yes.
But at least show up. We've had some friendships kind of like fizzle out because just during our season of grief, they just did not know
Yeah.
because they're they were living our answered prayer is
Hmm.
maybe one way to put it. And they just didn't know what to do with the grief that we were walking through.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. And so here you are in grief. You're walking through it with your partner, with God, and you're learning how to pray in
Yeah.
a new way, in a season where you've never prayed like this before. The message of the book, you can bring anything to God. The this,
Mhm.
the that, the questions, the thankfulness. How did that begin to make manifest in your specific life? Maybe as it relates to the book, but it seems to me that there was a moment where you really did start bringing things to God. Was there like a watershed moment where you did bring that thing to God where you hadn't before? Like I'm curious those little light bulbs and those sparks where you did start bringing all the things you could say to God.
I think there were a couple moments. So most mornings, my dog and I will go for a walk, and it's usually before the cars are out, and so we're walking up the streets of Nashville, and that's when I pray out loud.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And I think, sometimes people, I don't care how you pray. What works for me best is when I get to pray out loud and hear my own words
Well,
and know that I'm not the only one who hears them.
hmm.
And I stopped praying things the way that I had changed the way that I prayed instead of praying like God just, you know, you know what I need. I would start praying for things specifically and say the things out loud that I did not want to say out loud. The
Yeah.
things like, God, we are ready to be parents. We don't know what that looks like.
Mm.
We don't, I know that you know.
Yeah.
So, God, I am praying that you would allow us to get the opportunity to be parents to a boy or a girl.
Hmm.
one day soon. And then we would pray. I would pray for the birth mom out there. I would pray for our one day child. I would pray for health. I would just pray.
Yep.
And I would allow myself to hear all the things that were inside me
Yeah.
and not just let it rattle around inside. And then I would start praying. Just these prayers felt so big to me
Hmm.
because they are so big.
Yep.
But I was no longer being shy or timid or um like I could only ask for a little,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
I wanted to ask for I wanted to bring it all to God because I knew that heard me. So I prayed for it all, man. And I think so for the person listening who's like, I just don't, that's not, that's not me. My advice is to go for a car ride with no music on and just talk and see where that goes. Prayer it is not something you can get wrong, but it is something that you can um, become more comfortable
Yep.
with,
Yeah.
you know?
I do. Mm.
And it changes when you say the thing
Hmm.
that you're afraid to say
Yep.
or
Yes.
to ask for the thing that you don't feel like you're worthy of receiving.
Mm.
And it's same is true with writing. Now I pray before I write
Mm.
and I ask God for the words
Wow.
and I ask God for help
Hmm.
and I ask for a lot because I am a lot,
Hmm.
but I ask God to be part of the things that I'm doing because I don't want to do it alone.
Mm.
And I basically every day just saying I am just in need of a lot of help. I
Yes.
need a lot of help
Yes.
and I need you. And and I have to say like a lot has changed for me
Yes.
in that.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. In my life, I was at one of my darker moments, grief and all of
Hmm.
this, and um, I had gone on a 7 day silent retreat at a Jesuit retreat center,
Hmm.
and the first 3 days, the my so you're in silence for 23 hours, 23 and a half hours, and you get half an hour with the spiritual director. And my first few minutes there, or my first few days there, she didn't say much. I just, talking, 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 and she'd bless me and I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, man, I'm paying you all this money. You're not talking like, I'm staying at this place. And then probably on the third or fourth day, she goes, Tyler, you haven't prayed about any of this. And I was like, okay, now you're talking? Like, after 3 days of silence, that's the first thing you tell me? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I pray like this, I pray like that, all these things. And she goes, you haven't prayed for years. And I was like, lady, come on now. And she says, I need you to try this.
Mm.
Goes, for the next 4 days, I need you to pray to God as if God doesn't know anything.
Whoa.
And she goes, listen, you've told God a lot of things, but you've also assumed that God knows a lot, which is to say, you've not shared any of the details. You say things like, God, help. God, I need you. God, I'm lonely. God, I'm sad. But you never said, God, why did my mom die only 3 weeks before my son was born? And
Hmm.
you've seen your mom almost die 5 times. Why not this time did she not come back? Like, I
Yeah.
think she could have made it and she didn't. Like, God,
Mm.
why? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
say the specifics because without the specifics, relationship and engagement doesn't happen. It's not that God doesn't know, but if
Yeah.
we talk to God as if he just does know, we leave out the intimacy and the vulnerability, and there's no relationship that exists without vulnerability. So then,
Hmm.
dude, bro, I go out there, I start walking to the grounds, And I kid you not, I had to go back almost 2.5 years before I felt like I had been specific with God about what I was going through. Pray
Yeah.
to God as if God doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
You can bring
While
it all.
trusting he knows it all. Yeah.
Yes, while trusting He knows
Yeah.
and holds it all. And it had
Yeah.
very little to do with God, and it had everything to do with my vulnerability and my willingness to go to the details and put those on the table, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and also, what a gut punch.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But when you begin to say all the things to God,
Yes.
I love that. Like, pray like God knows nothing,
Yeah.
even though you know that he knows it all.
Yep.
But to hear yourself
Yes.
say the things and to say,
Yes.
well, now we've talked about this or we're talking about this. And I'm sure you could say you had no idea you were going to bring this up and bring this up and
Yes.
talk about this thing
Hmm.
because it's because he is right there with you.
Yes.
Like, let's talk about this. There is nothing that is off limits with God. And I think a lot of times we think that there are things that are off limits because when it comes to conversations with our friends, there are things that we just don't talk about. But when it comes to things with God, nothing is off limits.
Yeah. So good.
So, so then as you began to recount those years and to say all those things, what did that do to your heart?
Yeah. Again, it felt like God was a person again.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like God was only a deity. Like
Mm-hmm.
it felt like God was a person again. And it felt like there was actual love and intimacy there. And obviously things felt lighter, when you just get it out. But I think if anything, it just reframed my actual intimacy with God. God was a person. God
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just an all-knowing force in my ecosystem. Yeah.
It
I
like
think yeah,
shortened the distance,
100%.
even though there was no distance,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And I think for sure as well, bro, like there was, of course, questions that my soul held that
yeah,
my ego or my subconscious didn't feel safe asking yet. And
yeah.
it's like the more when you're vulnerable, when you start getting the stuff out of the top of the barrel, then the
Mm-hmm.
things at the bottom of the barrel start saying, "Oh, I'm safe to come out now." I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know there were some of those things at the bottom of the barrel. The
Yeah.
insecurities and the fears and these questions. Like there were questions I hadn't articulated in my mind yet because I had to
Mhm.
get the easy shit out of the top.
Yep.
And then the more that it flowed out, then it was like, oh, this actually goes back to my childhood wounds or the abuse I experienced as a kid, or like,
Hmm.
and it's like, oh,
Oh,
this is
so we're
all
talking about
attached.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And this is a lot like writing too,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Where with the writing, it is the first draft or the early years, and then you keep going and you keep digging and you keep finding the stuff and you
Yep.
kind of find your voice. I think I have found my voice as someone who prays,
Mm,
but also as somebody who writes. And that voice always change. It's always kind of becoming.
yep.
But I think the same is true with writing. Like, go look at my early stuff. I am saying a lot, but I'm not saying much.
Hmm.
Listen to my prayers now, and you're hearing everything pretty clear, you
Yeah.
know?
So
Um,
good. Yeah.
yeah,
What what how is writing you wrote a children's book, you write a lot of poetry. You
yeah.
you open a children's book and you're like, "Oh, this can't be that hard. There's only, 300 words or less in this thing." I know it's not true. What is it like writing a children's book versus poetry versus your other writing? What do we not
Mm.
understand about the burden of writing a children's book?
It's first of all, it's beautiful. It's a very fun process. It's very different than writing a poem. Basically, you want to take a big idea
Yeah.
and say, I think that book is like 600-ish words, which is not a lot of words.
Yes.
When you think about it, it is not a lot of words. So you want to, and then one of the things that I learned throughout the process, because this book went through a couple of rounds of edits, um, how will the illustrations inform the story?
Well,
What can be said in the pictures that you
mhm.
don't need to use with words? What words are necessary? What what do you want to say at the end of this page that they'll want to turn to the next page?
Mhm.
Things like, it's things like that. Um, as I was writing this book, I kept wanting to go to this place and to this place and to this place.
Mhm.
And you can only go to a few places in a children's book.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole time I kept thinking about the little kids in my life,
Yeah.
um, our best friends and their children, and what do I really want to share with them?
Yeah. Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and what how will this be helpful for the people that I love as they read this book?
Mhm.
Like hopefully as you guys were reading it, like you were able to ask questions to your kids.
Yeah.
What are you thankful for? What
Mhm.
questions do you have for God?
Mhm.
Things like that allow there to be conversation that leads to children praying individually, but also for parents to be like, this is a normal thing that we do
Yeah.
in our house.
Yeah.
We talk to God because because we are part of his family.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. The
Yeah.
writing the book was a ton of fun. I just feel so honored and thankful that I got to put a book out,
Yeah.
like that. And like I said at the beginning, I never thought this would be the book that I released. But I'm so glad that it's out there.
Yeah, totally. Tell me about the butterflies. There's a butterfly like little thread
Yeah.
that's sprinkled out through. Is there anything there to that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of reasons for it. My mom loves butterflies,
Hmm.
and they always remind my mom and now remind me of my grandma, of my mom's mom.
Yep.
So she passed away when I was 5, and so since I've been 5, every time I see a butterfly, I think about my grandma, which makes me
Yep.
think about my mom.
Hmm.
Um, so there's that tie-in. Someone did remind me too that it's also like it for those who have lost a child.
Hmm.
It's a symbol for that as well.
Wow.
When I see butterflies, I think of renewal,
Mm-hmm.
resurrection,
Hmm.
rebirth.
Hmm.
I never look at a butterfly and feel sad either.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And I think like that's part of it. But also like when you start writing, like I never realized when people would tell me when they're writing a novel and they're like a character just did this. And they're like, I had no idea the character that I was writing was going to do this in the book, and it changed the whole book. And I was like, that makes no sense at all. Like, you're the writer, you have control. Turns out you really don't, because as I'm writing the story, butterflies just keep coming up, and for some reason, she's just obsessed with them. And
I
so I'm like,
love it.
let's let that be part of who this character is.
Yeah.
Um, but also one thing that I hope that it shows is that we can be excited about the small things that we often take for granted or
Hmm.
that we overlook. She's teaching us to slow down and to be excited about the small things because we know that the small things are the big things like butterflies.
Yeah.
And butterflies also remind us that change happens, that
Yes.
we are always happening. So I mean, there's layers on layers on layers
Yes.
for it. And I was like, I just has to be in there.
Mm.
And I like them,
Yes.
you know?
Love it. Um, is there any other Easter eggs in the book that you wanna spill? I've got one little thing. I don't know if it's an Easter egg, but there's one part that made me laugh that I love. But I'm curious. I'll tell you in a sec.
Okay.
What Easter egg? Is there any other Easter eggs? Like, are you in the book? What's another thumbprint of Tanner that's somewhere in this wonderful book about prayer?
The big thumbprint is the dog in the book. He looks just like our dog,
Okay.
Pancake. His name is Mo in the book, but when the illustrator uh, was drawing dogs, I said, "Hey, the dog just needs to look like this dog." And so I sent her, 1,000 photos of
Yep.
Pancake. There is that. There's one as we were going through the editing process. And Anita did a beautiful job. I think the illustrations are so fun. They're super whimsical and colorful.
Yes.
There's early on in the book, I think it's early on in the book, the mom is walking towards the kitchen table and she's carrying a cup of coffee.
Hmm.
Um, but in the first drawing of it, she was carrying a cup of tea. And I
Hmm.
was like, I don't know how to say this, but this is a mother of two small children. She's not drinking tea. She's drinking coffee. We're a coffee family. So
I love that. I
Uh,
laughed last night when the dad was feeding the dog food at the table. Oh, that just blessed me. I was like, I
yeah,
wonder if that's a little
yeah.
Tannerism,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah,
feeding the dog there at the table.
yeah.
Um, you've said, you've written, you shared trillions of words, millions of messages. When it distills down to one or two things, whether it be about prayer, the slow and simple life that you invite people to,
Hmm.
the gentle and kindness that you exude in every way, your smile that just makes me feel seen. What's Tanner's message for the world? What would you hope, whether it be via prayer, like as you sit here today, and of course it changes, what do you hope the
Yeah.
world really, really would know?
There are like two things that seem to come up in my writing. Three things. Three things that come up again and again in my writing. The first is to slow down because I'm not
Yeah.
very good at slowing down.
Walk a little
Um,
slower, named
walk a little
one of
one
the
of the
poetry
books.
books of Tanner, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Walk a little slower. Like I said earlier, like I write about the things that I need to hear or learn or want to be about, and I want to be somebody who walks a little slower, who slows down. Because I really don't want to miss this gift of a life. And sometimes the gift feels like a burden, but it's still beautiful. Um, and then the two other things would be like I often say like a hope doesn't let the story end. I would say I'm a big hope guy, big hope guy. Um, and then everything is going to be okay. So to distill it all down, I would say like in Christ, we can slow down. Hope doesn't let the story end, and everything ends with being okay.
That's so good.
I
Mm,
think that's like it's what I tell myself. Everything ends with being okay, and we'll get to that point one day.
mm,
Because
yeah.
I know for a lot of us, I mean, it's just a hard thing to be a human being,
Yes.
and life is not okay for a lot of people. As we're recording this, and we could
Yep.
record this any other day and still wouldn't be. There's just a lot of heaviness and hate and hurt in the world.
Yep.
Uh, and oftentimes we don't know what to do about it,
Yep.
and so we can pray. Um, so I always come back kind of those three things that we can slow down. Hope doesn't let the story end, and it ends with being okay.
Yeah. It's so good.
What would you say? That's a good question. I want to know your answer on your
Mm,
podcast.
yeah. Um, I'd say more than anything, Tanner, for me, that our story starts in belovedness,
Mm,
that we were born good, that we were
yeah.
created good. I think the soil upon which we plant our seeds impacts how the seeds grow.
Mm,
And when we believe we were born separate and bad, the
mm,
totality of our life is spent trying to bridge a gap between separation and connection. I think we were Brene Brown says we were hardwired for connection.
mm,
Belovedness and connection is the first thing we ever knew. It's what we knew in the womb was
mm,
connection. Jesus even experienced that, was
mm-hmm,
connection. Our first knowing is connection, belovedness, being held, being safe. And I think if we knew that our story starts in belovedness, then that means we could continue to live that way, not having to strive to manufacture it, not
mm-hmm,
having to build our connection or belonging. But if we could just simply live as the beloved, it changes everything. So that we were born beloved and we still are.
mm-hmm. It's
Um,
very Psalm 23.
yes, yes, absolutely. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and we can talk all about it. That'll be in my book, which is called Born
I
Beloved
know. I
someday.
kind of figured. I kind of
Um,
figured you were going to go there.
but yeah, bro, it just belovedness, man. That like one of my main mantras is when I'm standing in my belovedness, I have nothing to
Hmm.
prove, nothing to lose, nothing to fear, nothing to gain. And much of our life is spent living out Henry Nouwen's three big lies, trying to prove that we belong by what we have, what we do, and our reputation, and but I'm the beloved. I don't have to prove it. And being able to, I can walk a little slower when I'm not
You
proving
can.
it. When I'm not
Yep.
proving it. When I
Hmm.
just am it. So yeah, man, just that we are tremendously good. And all of
Mm.
humanity is tremendously good.
Mm.
And dude, I work with felons and addicts, and man, I'm in prisons, and we're, and it's like when you can walk into places like this where people have done some bad things, and
Hmm.
you can see that these folks that most of society would say don't when you can see them as tremendously good, whew, the world, everyone's a butterfly, you know. And butterflies don't make me sad.
No.
And we are all unequivocally tremendously good, Tanner. I really believe that. I think God made us that way. When you first held your son, I mean, I'm getting a little theologically spicy here, but I'm telling you, when you held your son, there is no way you said, "What a wretch."
Oops. Yeah.
This kid was born bad. God hates him. We've got to fix him.
Hmm.
That just wasn't how he was born. You can
Yeah.
miss me with that. I mean, he was born good and beloved, and newsflash, he still is. You, Tanner, were born beloved, and you still are. This could be
Hmm.
your last book, and it doesn't change anything. I mean, we could keep going, but obviously, you're getting me on my
Yeah.
soapbox.
Well, it's your podcast and your
Yes.
soapbox. It's just, yeah. I have a friend, his name's David Zoll. He just wrote this book called The Big Relief, and
Hmm.
he talks a lot about, I mean, the book is all about grace.
Yes.
Grace really is it's the big relief for us.
Mm.
Like the goodness of God, um what's do you remember the acronym from Sunday school? God's riches at Christ's expense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like this grace, just like we can live in this grace.
Hmm.
It is a gift for you.
Yes.
You've done
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
Enjoy it now
Yes.
and now live out your belovedness.
Yes. Yes.
Go live it out.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I mean you get to go to prisons and speak with people who say, I wish I would have done things differently. Well, there's grace for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
100%.
I think grace comes along with the grief. We
Yes.
have to we don't we shouldn't try to separate the two, but let them live side by side.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
grace has a seat at the table just like our grief does.
Yep. Yeah. One thing again, I'm bringing up Brene Brown, but she so often says, "You may make a mistake, but you are not a mistake."
Yeah, it's
And
true.
that's what it's like, man. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I've done things I'm not proud of. I've said things I'm not, but man, I am not a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we're just trying to live that way. Um, Tanner, thank you so much, bro.
Dude, thank you.
Man, I'm just on the moon. I just feel so happy and calm hanging out with you. Um, this has been so good. The book is called All the Things I Say to God by Tanner Olson, found everywhere. Books are found. If you have been kind enough to listen to this podcast all the way to the end, the first person to DM me on Instagram the word pancake, I'm going to send you a copy of Tanner's book. So DM me on Instagram, the Tyler. That's my handle. Oh, that was my computer bell. The Tyler, Thuhtyler. That's my Instagram handle. If you DM me pancake, I'll mail you a copy of Tanner's book.
It's amazing.
So thanks for listening to the end. Um, you can find Tanner. Written to Speak is his website. That's his Instagram handle. Anywhere else people can find you? Anything else we need to let the people know?
I'm on Substack as well, just Tanner Olson. And then I've got a new book of poems coming out in February that I'll be talking about more in the next coming months. So
Come on,
yeah, more books, man.
let's
Just
go.
more books. And one day we'll be on a podcast again talking about your book, which I'm really
Yep,
excited for. And thank
yep,
you so much again, man, for not only
yeah,
for having me on your podcast, but for your honesty, for your kindness, and for inviting people along your journey. It
yeah,
truly does matter, and I'm stoked to hold your book one day.
yeah. Thanks, Tanner. Sooner than later, we've got some momentum. So,
I know.
um, Big love. We'll talk soon. Grace and peace, Tanner Olson.